Okay, welcome everybody. Good evening. We are going to be learning tonight a sequel of last week's Sikha. The truth is that it's the only connecting subject between this week's and last week's is the star of the show, Pinchas, ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen. But the Sikha is on a completely different subject, and this is a typical Rashi Sikha of the Rebbe, where the Rebbe takes a simple, innocent looking Rashi, and the Rebbe chops it into minced meat, asking a number of questions on the Rashi, and using those questions to develop a new understanding and a new mahalach, and a lot of very interesting and important hayos and avodas Hashem that we will see. The main subject or lesson or theme of this sikha is to battle a certain type of human tendency that we have, and when we see someone doing that, for sure, when we see someone doing something bad, human tendency is to judge them right away. And not to say, well, maybe, let's be down like us. Natural human tendency is that you judge them right away for the bad that you see them doing. But furthermore, human tendency is also that when you see someone doing something good, especially if the good that he's doing is on your turf or somehow touches upon your sensitivity. For example, a Lubavitch Shliach that's living in Yehupitzville couldn't care less if another Lubavitch Shliach living in another Yehupitzville puts tefillin on somebody. What does he care? But if a Shliach living in Yehupitzville has another Shliach come to Yehupitzville, of his Yehupitzville, right? Then suddenly it matters. He cares. Another human tendency that the Rebbe here is referring to, we're going to learn through in the Sikha, is that when we see someone doing something good, often human nature is to try to belittle it or to try to find a way that to disparage and often there's what to disparage about what the person is doing, and we basically put the person down or put his actions down. And this Sikha, the Rebbe sets home, meaning that he puts on paper a number of these tendencies and how a Jew is supposed to act and how he's supposed to battle them and not give in to his Yetzer Hara. Let's begin with, we're going to begin beginning of the Sikha. Ois Aleph, Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen. The Tchilas HaParsha Mastatzis Rashi Amilin Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen. Right? This week's Parsha is a sequel, a continuation, a conclusion of the previous Parsha, in which it says that Pinchas got up and killed someone, and someone being a male and someone being a female, and he ended the plague through doing so. It doesn't say the identity of the male or the identity of the female. That comes up in the beginning of this week's Parsha. So when the pasuk is going through what happened, who were the people? Zimri ben Salu, Cosby, Basur, and that also says Pinchas ben Oz ben Anakin. So Rashi has something to say on this. In other words, that there was something bothering Rashi about these words, meaning Pinchas, his father and grandfather, being named in Scripture, that he had to give a commentary. And Rashi chose a commentary that's already written in the Gemara and Sanhedrin, and the Gemara and Sanhedrin isn't coming to explain this pasuk. Rashi takes this Gemara and Sanhedrin and says that this teaching is based on this pasuk. What does Rashi explain? The Shvatim, all the other Shvatim, when they saw what Pinchas did to Zimri and Cosby, they began belittling him and disparaging him and making fun of him. How do they make fun of him? What do they do? So they said, did you see the son of the fattener, the son of the mother, whose father fattened calves for idolatry? And they continued, and he murdered the leader of a tribe of Israel. That's what the Shvatim had to say about Pinchas after this happened. He is a grandson of an idolater who would fatten calves, and he's a murderer. Fichach says Rashi, Bohakosov, the verse comes, Shvatim are coming and saying about what Pinchas did. You see what this Shagitz did. He went ahead and he killed Shiktzin. And he killed the Nasi Shevet, right? He killed the Nasi Shevet. You see what he did? He's a Ben Benai Shalayvet Avodah Zarah. So the pasuk says no. He also has another lineage from Aaron HaKohen, and therefore the pasuk emphasizes no. He is from the lineage of Aaron, not from the lineage of Yisro. Okay, it's a little bit of a strange Rashi, and we're going to explain why soon. But let's first begin. Mahu HaKoshim. What was the problem that Rashi had on these simple words? I mean, Rashi, give us a break. When did Rashi come along and explain? What's difficult about a pasuk saying the lineage about an individual? Again, Rashi is not a compiler of interesting midrashim. So there's a Gemara in Sanhedrin, so yeah, Rashi comes and brings it along. No, that's not Rashi's job. Rashi does not do such things in many midrashim. Rashi comes for the purpose of when there's a difficulty in understanding what's going on here in the actual scripture. And it's not understood. What was Rashi's problem? The simple explanation of this is, there's no intrinsic problem with the pasuk mentioning the lineage of Pinchas. There was nothing strange about that pasuk intrinsically. But the problem is that it's repetitive. Just a few psukim earlier, in the end of Parshas, right in the end of the previous Parsha, it says, "Vayar Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen." It says already his lineage. Why the repetition? Again to repeat it. So the fact that the Torah repeated the yichus of Pinchas, that Omer Darsheni is saying there's a reason, there's a message that the Torah is trying to give. What's that message? And that Rashi had to explain, because the Ben Shuta, the Ben Chamish Limit, the 5-year-old is reading from him. He says, "Hey, God, you just told me that 3 seconds ago. Why are you saying it again?" So Rashi needs to come along and explain why it was necessary to repeat. So on this, repeated to outdo, to counteract the claim of the Shvatim. They were making fun of him and saying, "Your yichus is from an evil idol worshiper."
They get confused.
No, it was true.
Wasn't his grandfather.
No, let's get the facts straight for everybody to know. They weren't lying. Pinchas's mother was the daughter of Yisro. Elazar married the daughter of Yisro.
Another daughter.
Yeah, Yisro had a few daughters. One Moshe took, and one Moshe's nephew took, whose name was Elazar. And after the shidduch of Elazar and the daughter of Yisro, they had a child named Pinchas. So it wasn't a lie. The Shvatim weren't making it up. They weren't imagining things. They were saying the truth. But they chose to write the lineage of the idol worshiper of Pinchas instead of writing the lineage to Aaron. So the Torah says, don't focus on the negative lineage. Focus on the positive lineage. So therefore the Torah repeats itself and says that no, he is the descendant of Aaron. The Rebbe on this Rashi, meaning even though we've explained what Rashi is coming to explain, what his issue was, that he was needed to recruit this Gemara, the Rebbe is going to ask on this Rashi, and the way he explains it, 6 different questions. Okay? So we're going to have now 6 questions. Some of them are nuances and some of them are really good questions. Question number 1. Aleph, Mikach Shabbat Kosav Yichsoy. Efshel lahasik shemishu bizaisa. Ach ein lahavin mikach mi bizaisa. From the fact that the Torah needed again to write the special lineage of Aaron HaKohen, of Pinchas, right? We can understand that someone was making fun of him. Someone was putting him down, so the Torah needed to come and protect and defend Pinchas. However, it doesn't say, from that question, we don't have a conclusion of who were the perpetrators of this claim. Who were the people that were claiming to Pinchas and spreading to the whole Klal Yisrael, oh, Pinchas, who did this murder, he was the grandson of an idol worshiper. I understand somebody was doing this, somebody was, and therefore the Torah had to protect Pinchas and say, no, he comes from good lineage. But who were the people? If we had to do an investigation and conclude who would be, if as an investigators we try to look at who would have the greatest motive for the crime. Who would have the greatest motive to make fun of Pinchas? Who? Shimon. The Shevet of Shimon, they lost their leader. They lost 24,000 from the plague. They have the biggest motive to put Pinchas down. They were the ones personally hurt by his actions. So if Rashi would have said in his Pirush that the Shevet of Shimon came and were making fun of Pinchas, so Hashem then came in the Pasuk and relisted his good lineage, fine. But Rashi doesn't say it. What did Rashi say? Shvatim, meaning all the Shvatim, everybody. And body skill myself Pinchas, we actually put us over the betats and gave more than Israel. Yeah, some of it I'm going to do quick because it's a very long sikha, so you'll have to forgive me. Some of it I'll translate, we'll go slow, and some of it we'll do quick. The Rebbe is here re-emphasizing the question. From Pshuta Shulchanaruchharav, we would for certain conclude that only Shevet Shimon would have a motive to make fun of Pinchas, to attack him, and B, all the other Shvatim would have a motive to protect him. It's not just that other Shvatim don't have a motive to attack him. They have the opposite motive to protect him, as it says in the previous parsha that Klal Yisrael came to Moshe crying. There was a Magefa. People were dying. There was an epidemic. And they came crying to Moshe, do something, and Pinchas did something and stopped the Magefa. So now they're going to go and make fun of Pinchas and belittle him and betray him when he helped them? So it only makes sense that the only Shevet who was personally hurt, who received collateral damage from this event was Shevet Shimon. So to come along for Rashi to say the words that the Shvatim, meaning all the Shvatim came and belittled Pinchas, makes no sense. From where does Rashi conclude this? That all the Shvatim ganged up suddenly. That also the other Shvatim belittled him. Grandson of Aaron, who came along and followed through a Torah command like we discussed in last week's Sikha. And they knew this. It was no. We're not saying that they were Amorats. They knew the halach. So what did they want from Pinchas? And Pinchas ended the Magefa. So that's the first very strong question. Second question. Yisri was one of the greatest idol worshippers that ever lived. He was a baki in every type of Avodah Zarah. He tried everything out. Not only did he fatten calves for idol worship, where he wasn't just an idolatry farmer, he was a koimer, a priest, and a mumch in every Avodah Zarah of the world. If the Shvatim were really looking at ways to belittle Pinchas about his bad lineage, they could have done much greater and much better. If you're already looking to disparage, what are you mentioning the small crimes? They could have said, they could have said, this is the grandson, the son of the daughter of the individual who served every idolatry in the world. I mean, have you ever met someone who served idolatry, let alone meeting someone who served every idolatry on earth? That's a lot. There's a lot of idolatries even today. Imagine back then when most of the world was idolatry. Most of them, right? Paganism. It was only religion. So they could have chosen something much worse. What are you mentioning the small crimes that he fattened calves? Who cares? Who cares about that? What relevance is that? In answer to your question, that the tshuva, that's not the point here. The point is they're saying, I understand he became a ger afterwards, but he still was you know, he still was a person at one point in his life that did these terrible things. Gimel. L'etzem habizayin. First of all, they weren't mentioning it to Yisro, they were mentioning it to him about his grandfather. That's one. Two, no one's defending the behavior of the Shvatim. No one's saying what they did was okay. We're not giving them the gold medal. Yeah, you guys were great. That's why we have this whole sikha. We're explaining they were wrong. The pasuk says they were wrong, and we want to explain what was their having and what were they thinking? Why did they do this? Gimel. Third question. Right. So the first question is, who says all the Shvatim came along? It makes no sense they all the Shvatim. Only Shevet Shimon should be the ones belittling him. And number two, why, if they're already mentioning bad stuff, mention the real crimes. Three, the third question. Why is it so important for Rashi to mention his mother's father? Who cares? Just mention his grandfather. Just say it's Cana, his grandfather. If you don't know his lineage, you look up in the Medrash, look up in the Gemara. Why does Rashi have to mention the words Avi Imai? What relevance does that make? So this is a little bit of a kvetch of a question, but we're going to see that the answer is stronger than the question, meaning that there's a detail here that reveals something important we're going to see later on. Because right? Everyone knows that his grandfather was Arab. That's clearly in the Psukim, as we already said. So when you say Skenai, everyone understands who is the pasuk referring to. His mother's father. Because his father's already taken. Dalit. The fourth question. Ilu Isa Kavanas Rashi Kam has been doing a fight to pasuk is Chusay Shulchanaruchharav. The Shainis. Dai Bar Lefichach Ba Kasav Yichsa. Madua Meisef Rashi Lahadgish Al Mi is Kavanas Hatar Lo Yachsa. Yichsa Acher Al. This is another little bit of a kvetch of a question, but we're going to see later on how the Rebbe explains it to make it all into a beautiful picture. Why does Rashi need to go along and say that the Torah, in the end of his commentary, Rashi says, therefore the Torah writes his lineage after Aaron. Rashi could have simply said, therefore the Torah comes and writes his lineage. We understand what the Torah wrote. We know the Torah wrote that he's after Aaron. Why does Rashi have to add those words which are already understood from the pasuk? There's even a greater question, a greater difficulty on this. On Makach Torah Mesiva ben Aaron HaKohen, Pinchas Ugam Nechdish Lan HaKohen, Lorak B'nei Shlo Lazna. Mudgash Yesu Yichusi Anala, Achbar Shigam HaYuchas ben Alazu Nal Kshlatz, Yesu Gam Kohen Gadol. The Yesu Mekach, Kan B'Maisa Shitim Shoyel La'acher. Okay, Tiras Aaron, HaYalazar HaKohen HaGadol. Rashi could have kept things simple and short and to the point and said, because they were making fun of him, the Torah came and wrote the lineage. So, what does Rashi do? He says, therefore the Torah came and wrote the lineage to Aaron. 1 second. First of all, why do you have to mention that? Second of all, you just skipped his father. Where's Elazar? If you want to be repetitive, so say the whole thing. What happened to Elazar? The Torah felt it was important to mention his name. Rashi doesn't. What happened to Elazar? Why is he missing suddenly? And let's not forget, who was the Kohen Gadol at that time? Not Aaron. Aaron passed away. Elazar was. So this is the fourth question. Why does Rashi feel the need to mention the yichus of Aaron? Number 5. Why does Rashi omit the word that the pasuk says Kohen? Why does he only write Achar Aaron? He should say Achar Aaron HaKohen. We must conclude that the intent of Rashi in mentioning in his commentary that therefore the Torah came and wrote his lineage after Aaron, he's coming to emphasize two things. That the main aspect of Pinchas' lineage is to Aaron, not Elazar. And two, that it's the fact that Aaron is Aaron and not the fact that he's a Kohen. And therefore he omits the word Kohen. However, this is not understood as the pasuk itself, Mefurish, Pinchas ben Aaron HaKohen. So then, from where does Rashi conclude that those parts of the pasuk are not important, and the main thing is just Aaron himself? Is everyone satiated with enough questions? There is one more, yes.
There is something that kind of clarity. You say that they could have said something worse. Like what?
We said that his grandfather, that is that they was trying to look at the bad yichus of himself, saying this guy who went in and did this murder and killed the leader of Israel. Look at who his grandfather was. He fattened calves. So the Rebbe says in the third question, what do you mean he fattened calves? He was the chief Oived Avodah Zarah of the world. He was the Pope. Yeah. I'll review the questions. We're going to review the questions. Yeah. We're going to review all 6 questions again. Okay, question. Yeah, question 6. In addition to all the kvetches, all the inferences of questions that we asked, it needs to be understood what is the basis of any of their disparaging and any of their claims. If they held or thought that it's forbidden for Pinchas to kill Zimri, either because they didn't know the halacha that Pinchas knew, so they thought he committed murder, or because they said, well, Pinchas is not a kanai, so what is he doing? He's not doing it due to his vengeance for Hashem, but due to other reasons. They should have just kept it. What are you getting involved with his family for? Leave Yisro alone. He became a Baal Tshuva. He became a ger. Leave him alone. You have an issue with Pinchas? Call him a murderer. Call him a sheikh. Why do you have to start up with? Why do you take his grandfather out of his grave? If the only thing bad you can say about someone is what his grandfather was, that's pretty good today. So keep it to the point. Say you're a murderer, you're a shagitz, you're a cruel person, you're a sicko. You should be locked up. Why are they bringing up Yisro? This is the question that I was asking. They bring up that he fattened the Galam of Avodah Zarah. Now, so that's I thought it was us. I thought it was us. So then keep to the point that he's a murderer. But if no, they knew that what he did was right. It was correct what he did. And he killed Zimri justifiably. As they knew the law. So what are you bringing up what his grandfather was? What's the relevance? So we're not just discussing here, today there's no good act that goes unpunished. There will always be somebody that will complain. You can give the best speech in the world. There will be somebody that will say, Rabbi, that was horrible. I can't stand what you said. There will always be, end of our kazeh. We're Jews, and that's what Jews are. There will always be a complaint. But this whole Rashi and this whole sikh is not about one person. Because that will always be. There's nothing to do about it. There will always be kvetchers. There will always be people who look for problems. This sikh is referring to all the Shvatim, no Klal Yisrael.
It seems to me the biggest question is, I think, the third one, like they benefited from it.
Yeah.
So why are they complaining?
Right. So let's summarize the questions again, okay? All 6 questions, we're not going to do them in one shot, or should I give someone else to do them? These sikhs, the Rebbe would look who would fall asleep and who was paying attention. Yeah, a lot of people fell asleep during these sikhs, sure. It was long and it was difficult. It was difficult for a lot of people. At one point, the Rebbe wanted to give up the Rashi sikhs because enough people aren't engaged. Okay, so again, the first question that the Rebbe asked is, why does Rashi say all the Shvatim did it? That's the first question. People say that Shimon, that's who has a motive to make fun of him, to belittle him. Everyone else has a motive to protect him because he saved their skin. Number two, if you're already making fun of his grandfather and his yichus, go to the real crimes, that he was the chief idol worshiper and the chief pope of idolatry. The third question that the Rebbe asks is a diuk of why does Rashi have to mention that it was his father's mother? Just say it was his grandfather. We know exactly who he's referring to because his other grandfather is taken. It's Aaron. Number four, why does Rashi have to mention that the pasuk writes that he's meyuchas after Aaron? Just say the pasuk therefore writes his yichus. Why does Rashi again have to repeat Aaron? And the question is even stronger by the fact that he omitted Elazar. Why do you omit Elazar? Number five, why does Rashi omit that his yichus is to Aaron a kohen? The pasuk says kohen. Why does Rashi omit that word? And number six, what was Bechlal the reason or motive or justification of anybody making fun of Aaron, making fun of Pinchas? If what he did was wrong, then stick to the point. Call him a murderer. Don't bring up Yisra into the story. There's nothing to do with it. And if what we did was right, then we did was right. Who cares about Yisra? So these are all the questions. So now we're going to begin the stage of the answers, and that's the rest of the Base. Hashvatim hibnu al kved Moshe v'Yisrael. Hezbollah kachu. B'dizay Pinchas eskavnu hashvatim lahagin al kvedim shel kol shar b'nei Yisrael v'kvedesh Moshe. In this line, we're going to begin answering all 6 questions. We're going to see a whole new picture. Zimri Havius Amidyanis Laini Moshe Laini Koladas Bnei Yisrael. We made being Kol Bnei Yisrael Rab Pinchas Haya Yochre Shekinas Kinas Hashem. This man should provide the Haya Oidin Bnei Yisrael Shekinas Allah Shpel Rabbis Kana and Pagan Boy. Provide the Moshe Yoda Zayis Krishana Pinchas Atzal Moshe Mekubal Nimech. In Kach Yesh Kan Zilzul Otzum Bechveidin Shel Bnei Yisrael Bechveidin Shel. The Shvatim had a very calculated reason for why they attacked Zimri. They weren't just part of that minority kvetcher group who will kvetch and complain no matter what in all circumstances. They were not at all. Maybe a few, but not the majority. There was a very calculated reason of why they said, something's going on, we have to stop this, we need to belittle Pinchas. We need to give him a few pinches. We need to put him down a little bit. We need to demote him. Why? A huge magaifa is going on, a crisis, a total crisis is happening. There's an epidemic spreading. People are being intimate with Gentile women. They are going ahead and serving idolatry. I went through the Midrashim last week. They were serving Avodah Zarah in order to be able to be intimate. They forced them to do Avodah Zarah. So there's absolute chaos, sinful activity going on, and Jews are falling. Did we say that? I don't know if we said the number. About 200,000 Jews died in that whole thing. 200,000! No, 24,000 was only the Magaifa. So first in the pasuk that Hashem told Moshe to appoint each shofet of Yisrael to kill those who did the sin. And Rashi brings from the Medrash, every shofet killed. And how many shoftim were there? There were over 75,000 shoftim. So do the math. There's about 175,000 Jews died in the sword. There were only 600,000 Jews above age 20, of males above age 20 at that time. So we're discussing a major, major calamity.
First the day, and then the day.
Yeah. So there's a major calamity here that happened. So all this could have been stopped by someone getting up and fulfilling the halach of Kanayim Peikim. And not one person of the whole Klal Yisrael, all the Gedolei Yisrael, the Talmidei Chachamim, the Rabbanim, the Askanim, including Moshe Rabbeinu himself, the leaders, the Rebbe, no one did anything to save the situation. And comes along this individual named Pinchas, and he goes ahead and does it. So this is a big busha for Moshe. This is a big busha for all the Gedolei Yisrael, that they sat quietly and allowed this thing to go on, and they didn't fulfill the halacha. Sorry? Oh, I don't. The dates. I don't know. No, I don't know how long it was. didn't see any details. But the point is that we're trying to bring up here. We're trying to explain now the motive of why all the Shvatim would feel a need to demote Pinchas for what he did. Why? Because if we say Pinchas is this great guy who went ahead, he was the only one who went ahead and stood up for the Torah. He's basically saying all the other Gedolei Yisrael, including Moshe Rabbeinu, are not the real thing. When the test came, they couldn't stand up and go through with the Torah. So what did they say this at the time? There's a reason why only Pinchas of all the Jewish people did this. Moshe Rabbeinu, his nephew Elazar Kohen Gadol, Pinchas' father, and all the other Shivim Zkenim and all the Nasiya Shifti Yisrael and all the great Gedolei Yisrael sat silent and did not fulfill this halacha, even though they knew it. They didn't go ahead and kill Zimri. Why not? Because there's many halachas in the Shulchanaruch that it's very difficult to fulfill and almost impossible to fulfill. For example, it says in the end of Chassidus that a person who is an apikairis, meridin v'lei ma'ila, if to murder them. Who's going to have the guts to murder a Jew? Who? Who's going to go ahead and fulfill this halacha? God, I'm sorry, this one I can't do. I can't. It's against my nature. I can't do it. You're right, Kanaim Paigamba. You're right that there's such a halacha that a Kanai, a zealous person, has the right to go ahead. He doesn't have the chiyuv. He has the right to go ahead and kill Zimri for what he was doing. Huh? No, he doesn't have an obligation. It's a right. We explained last week in the Sikh. Yeah, if we ask, we explained last week. If he asks, we tell him, no, you're not allowed to. It's something he has to do on his own initiative, and it's not an obligation. It's a right. It's an allowance. Listen to the recording of last week's class. So why did no one else in Klal Yisrael, all the great Gedolim, everybody, literally everybody, today you can't find one thing that 99% of Gedolim agree upon. And here, everyone agreed. No one was willing to do this. Why? Because a Jew can't kill another Jew. Comes along Pinchas, and he thinks, so everyone's now going to look at it, if we don't make fun of him, that he's higher and more spiritual and more zealous for God than everyone else. He's the firmest person of the generation, more than Moshe. No, you know why he did it, says the Shvatim? He's a cruel person. He has a cruel nature. His grandfather, you know what Yisrael, his grandfather was? He was a calf fattener that would fatten it for Avodah Zarah. That's why they needed to make fun of him. They were doing it to save the shame of the Gedolei Yisrael and Moshe Rabbeinu at the head. So they were real Chassidim. They were strong Chassidim of Moshe Rabbeinu, and they couldn't stand that another Chassid did something that can be viewed as a belittlement of their Rebbe. So therefore, they demoted him. They started making fun. You're not Gej. What are you doing? I once had this case happen with me. Somebody did something terribly wrong, and I was trying to give them teichacha for what they did. And they wouldn't accept the teichacha. They wouldn't accept that what they did was against the law. And then they told me, and do you know who my grandfather was? They came from a very chashuv family. And I said, in fact, I do know. And I didn't say what I wanted to say, which is that I also know where your other grandfather's from. I didn't say it, but they're trying to use the yichus of the grandfather to transgress Torah. Anyways. So this is why they did it, to save the covenant of Moshe. Don't think that Pinchas is now the firmest guy in the neighborhood. He's the star of the show, the hero of Klal Yisrael. This happened because Pinchas is a lowlife. Because Pinchas is a cruel man. There were other motives here. Pinchas was just waiting for the day that he can let out that blood-sucking desire to kill someone. He was just waiting to pounce on this mitzvah. Now we're going to explain, in this part the Rebbe explains, how the matter of disparagement that they said that his grandfather fattened calves, how that is connected directly to how they demoted Pinchas. The reason why they said this specifically, meaning they said specifically the claim that he fattened calves, and not the claim that, let's say, Yisrael is a big Ovid Avodah Zarah. Moving the Pashtus, Shelarigas Mishu ein mida kai rabba shelachzaris kvishesh b'mikasheis and imay kevayachol toiva miyuchedes aman arigasi kasher mefaten esay v'imzayis meskaven la'achinay dekach larigasi. Why did they pick specifically this aspect of Yisrael's great long life career? They picked the fact that he was, on his resume. They picked specifically the fact that he was a calf fattener, because this shows how cruel Yisrael was. Yisrael fed, Kiviyachli was feeding, being nice to the animals, when the whole point of fattening them was to serve them all up to Avodah Zarah. So he was feeding them for the sake of killing them. So that's extremely cruel. To give them a toiva, to give them a favor, when in truth, what's behind the favor? To kill them. The Kivin Shavi Imay Koyach Zari B'Tivus, so the Shvatim said, you see, since Yisrael, his grandfather, was so cruel by nature, something happened? Yesh la'aniach, we can assume Shagam Nechtei Pinchas Yarash Mimenu Tchunazu. Yeah, I know Yisrael did tshuva, he became a ger and his mother, but there's certain family natures that remain in the family. And we see here clearly, go speak to a psychologist, he'll tell you this is very cruel what Yisrael did. So it must be that Pinchas inherited this cruelty that no one else in Klal Yisrael had. No one else, in other words, if you want to say, you see, Pinchas is the hero of Klal Yisrael, he's the only one who stood up. Of course he's the only one. Who's the only one who had a grandfather who did such cruelty? He's the only one who has such cruelty in his nature, in his blood, in his DNA. So therefore, that's why Pinchas is the one who did it. And while all the rest of Klal Yisrael, including even Moshe, didn't do it, because their nature of Klal Yisrael couldn't allow them to kill another Jew, even if they were allowed to. While Pinchas had no problem because he has a cruel nature. Rashi, this explains to us why Rashi says, it was all the Shvatim, not just Bnei Shimon, as the intent of the disparagement was to protect Moshe. And that was a motive that all Klal Yisrael had in common. They didn't do this to protect Zimri. They couldn't care less about Zimri. Zimri deserved it. They're trying to protect the covenant of Moshe. So Klal Yisrael and the rest of Klal Yisrael.
It didn't bother them that everybody was sitting for the Zorah, and that was okay. Just that he killed, that was about the thing. Everything else was okay.
Well, I mean, the people who did the sin were no longer alive, so the people who were speaking. Let's just get the facts straight. Okay. All the Shvatim who were now making fun, they were the tzaddikim.
Right.
They were not involved in the sin.
Why did they do anything?
Because they said it's too cruel to go ahead and kill someone. It's too cruel to go ahead and
kill someone. About the Mother, why did they do anything? So don't kill them.
One second. Why didn't who? I want to understand your question. Why didn't who do what? The leaders? Well, they did. The Shaftim killed 2 Jews each. That's pretty big. We said that already.
If they see the plague stop, it means that Hashem agreed to.
Yeah, according to this answer, the way the Rebbe explains it, the Shvatim were not coming to tell Pinchas you shouldn't have done what you've done. That wasn't their point. They weren't coming to put Pinchas on trial for murder. Okay, this wasn't the Dreyfus case. They weren't trying to make up a blood libel against Pinchas and to make believe there's no such halacha. It wasn't right. They were just trying to protect the covenant of Moshe, to demote Pinchas a little bit. I mean, let's think about it in Rebbehood. If Chassid did something better than his Rebbe, maybe now Chassidim going to turn him into the Rebbe. So there's now competition. So we gotta deflate him a little bit. That was the intent. The intent was simply to deflate Pinchas a little bit. They weren't coming to say that what Pinchas did was not justifiable. They weren't coming to say that it didn't give benefit. It did. They saw the benefit. The plague stopped. They were just coming to say, I understand Pinchas is the one who saved the day, but don't make too much of a big deal about him because there's a reason why he did it and no one else did. That's all. What's the version?
Distorted.
The Rebbe continues in the next ice 3 to explain why Rashi emphasizes, also the Gemara, that he killed a Nasi Yisrael. Why the need to emphasize Nasi Yisrael? Just say that he killed. He was if we were to say that the Shvatim's intent of belittling Pinchas is to say that he was a murderer, then it makes sense why it emphasizes he's a murderer that killed the leader of a Shevet. They're coming to emphasize how great of a murderer he is and how the murder that he did, how terrible it was. Since the intent of their disparagement was not to say that he was a murderer, but rather to say that he's cruel, they were trying to point out that he has a cruel nature. What difference does it make who he killed? That he killed the Nasi? Is it more cruel to kill a Nasi than to kill another Jew? Why is it necessary to emphasize this? But in truth, this is not a question. As by mentioning who he killed, the disparagement of Pinchas is even greater. Why? As they're trying to emphasize the difference in Pinchas versus Zimri. Nasi doig l'chol tzarech. A Nasi, a leader, his whole being, his whole essence is for the sake of the nation. I'm not talking about leaders today. I'm talking about real leaders of back in the day, a Rebbe, a real Nasi. Right? For the sake of the nation. His entire life, his entire heart is the people. So Zimri was a person who represented giving up everything for somebody else. Meaning tachlis hachesed, the epitome of kindness, the epitome of love, the epitome of the opposite of cruelty. And so too it was with this very action of Zimri asher asazais. Zimri, why did Zimri do this something so stupid and so cruel and so evil to go ahead and be with Cosby? What was he thinking? This was calculated. It wasn't because Zimri had a Yetzirah, he got caught up in the Taivan. No, not at all. This was a calculated intellectual decision by Zimri to help save his Shevet. Why? As Rashi says in the previous parsha. When the Shevet of Shimon gathered around their leader Zimri, and they said to him, we're dying in the plague and you're doing nothing. Zimri wanted to come and be malamed schus to Hashem and Klal Yisrael and say, no, in truth, the Midyanis is mutter. They're doing nothing wrong. And therefore, I'm not just going to say it, I'm going to do it. I'm going to marry a Midyanis. I'm going to be intimate with a Midyanis. Says the Rebbe that it's possible and likely that he also knew this halacha that Pinchas learned, that he's allowed to be killed for those and he gave up his life for the sake of saving the Shevet. Two ways of explaining it. Number one is that he wanted to be Melamed Schos. He truly felt that even though in truth there's a side in halacha that this is forbidden and playing Beigen boy, Moshe Rabbeinu married a Midyanis. The guy, okay. Well, what was Geirus back then? Right. So whatever the Geirus was back then, he'll do the same thing. Whatever the Geirus was.
No, it was before Torah.
Correct. It was before.
He didn't need to convert.
It was before Torah. It's true. That's true. And not even okay. That's one option. Is just to show that somehow in Zimri's mind there's a concept of a Rav being Melamed Schus. When the Rav searches for a way in Poskim, most Poskim say it's Aser, it's treif. But there's one opinion that you can understand. So maybe that was Zimri's point. Zimri's point was not just to say that there's a way to learn that this is mutter, but even he wanted to prove the point. In order to be Melamed Schus, and he holds that of course it's Aser, of course you have to be Mach. But in order to save my Shevet, I'm willing, like the Baal Shem Tov, they say the Baal Shem Tov would have a very deichik sukkah, which most Rabbanim would say, this sukkah is pasul. And it's very difficult to pasul a sukkah. You have to really be well versed in halacha to know how to make a non-kosher sukkah. And the Baal Shem Tov did it, and the Rebbe explained once he did it in order to save the almost puzzle sukkahs of the simple Yidden who didn't know Allah. So it could be that's one explanation. It could be that's one way that he wanted to save his Shevet by being Melamed Tzchus. Or the second explanation is this itself. He says, I'll put my life in danger, somebody will come and kill me, and the plague will end. And that's how I'll save my Shevet. How am I going to save my Shevet? By telling them you're not allowed to do this? They're not listening to me. Look at what they're doing already. No one's listening, so I have to prove a point. So there's two different ways, but anyways, this is not what's discussed in the Sikha of what was Zimri's motive, just that Zimri wanted to save his Shevet.
So this is like
I can't hear.
Slavchad.
Slavchad?
That name, I can't pronounce it.
Right. Very similar to the Slavchad. Yes, very similar to what's explained regarding Slavchad. Therefore, the Shvatim emphasize not just that he is a murderer due to his cruel nature, but that he killed a Nasi. To emphasize the Hevdil, the difference in Aretzeach, the murderer and the victim, that the murderer was the epitome of cruelty, the only one in Klal Yisrael who was willing to do this act of murder, and the person who was killed was Tachlis HaChesed, someone who gives his whole life over for his Shevet, and especially that in the action itself, that what he was doing was for the sake of saving the skin of the Shevet. He was doing this for the sake of Chesed. So this strengthens and intensifies the bizayon that they're pointing out against Pinchas. The Rebbe now adds a very interesting but a very true fourth point. It's a lot of very interesting in Yonim and psychology that we can learn from this. It says like this. There's an additional aspect here. Although someone who has a cruel nature treats everyone with cruelty, he's a bad nature. He treats everybody, he's always making fun. He's always, everything's negative, always putting everybody down. Someone who's cruel, his cruelty is expressed specifically and most innately when you meet someone who's very kind-hearted. It's true. Notice this. They take advantage of the nice people even more. As due to the mere fact that the man who represents, who embodies kindness, is the exact opposite of his nature. He cannot stand him. And he treats him with greater cruelty than any other person. And this is why the Shvatim emphasize that he killed the Nasi. This emphasized Ladaita, according to their opinion. Another additional nakuda and explanation of why Pinchas suddenly got up and did this cruel act. And since Pinchas is the epitome, he has this cruel nature in him, and Zimri is the epitome of kindness, Anasi Ish Chesed, was being Moshe Nefesh. So at that moment, the cruelty in Pinchas got so aroused that he had to go ahead and vengeance, in the so-called vengeance of Hashem, and kill Zimri. He couldn't stand it. And this arouses in Pinchas the character of cruelty that he inherited from his grandfather even more so. So this is all part of the claim, and we're explaining the claim of the Shvatim, and how they were basically building up and intensifying to Klal Yisrael. You see, this is all due to the cruel nature of Pinchas that this happened. This idea that the Rebbe here mentions, that a person who has a cruel nature, he's most mean towards kind people, it's beneficial in a number of ways, knowing this, having this perspective. First of all, number one, when you ask yourself, why am I a victim of such cruelty from this person who did such kindness to me? Sometimes being a softie and being, giving in and giving, that you don't understand. You think that by being nice and giving in, you're going to make amends. You're going to make the person be kinder and nicer. Just the opposite. A cruel nature will use that to torture you. Will use that against you. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's one example.
Many relationships.
That's one example. Yeah, but it's in many. Yeah, it's true. It's in many relationships. It's not. That's a global, a national example with Jews and Palestinians. You give in, you show soft, they'll take more. You give them an arm, they take away. But it's in many relationships that there's a certain, when a person has, when one of the people in the relationship has a certain feeling of dominance over the other person, so the other person thinks that by me being nicer, I'll try to be nicer. They speak about this a lot in abuse cases. That the abuse victim says, also I'll try harder to be nice. By trying harder to be nicer, you're feeding him more. They want to take more advantage now. They want to be more domineering. They want to be more dominated. And that's why also in parenting, parents and children, it's the same idea. When a parent doesn't show a spine and gives in and is always feeding nice, so they get trampled on, and so on and so forth. But okay, so there's a lot to think about the Tein L'Chacham Kamayit on that message. And the message is also for the other side. It's not just for the person becoming the victim of the achzer, but the achzer himself. He asks himself, why do I have such animosity and such a difficult time with this individual? Put it on paper. This person has helped me the most in my life. They are the closest people in my life. They have done the most benefit in chesed in my life. Why do I dafka pick on them? I must have an achzer nature. I must have a terrible nature. They have to work on it. I have to recognize this issue of mine. So this is what everybody was saying about Pinchas. Why the Shvatim emphasize Avim? Another Rebbe is going to go into in this ice. Why? Remember, we asked in one of the questions. Why? In the third question, why does Rashi say Avim? Just say his grandfather. Why? We know who his grandfather is. Why does Rashi have to emphasize Avim? Says people could come over to these people that are disparaging Pinchas and are spreading slander about him, about what his motives were, and tell them, what are you saying he's the grandson of Yisro? He's also the grandson of Aaron. How can you claim Pinchas is so cruel more than any other Jew when specifically through his other grandfather, he's lineage to the person of Tachas HaChesed? So maybe he comes from Aaron and not from, maybe he's more, his intuition, his character is more from Aaron than it is from Yisro. So he's Rashi. That's why Rashi emphasized that the Shvatim said not just the word grandfather, they said the word that his father's, that Pinchas' mother's father, Pitim Agam Avodah Zarah. Why? Is by doing so, they emphasize why Pinchas would receive more the character of his cruel grandfather than that of his kind grandfather. How? As the halacha is that when a woman gives seed first, she has a male. And that's why a man is more similar in nature to his mother than he is to his father. But while a mother, since a man gives seed first, he has a nekeva. In other words, that the father's tendencies are more carried by the daughter, while the mother's tendencies are more carried by the son. So do the cheshbon. We want to know which tendencies came into play in this act of murder of Zimri. So let's think about it. I understand he has two sets of grandfathers who are on the opposite extreme of cruelty and kindness. So where did this come from? Well, the father, Pinchas' father is Elazar. But between Elazar and his wife, it says that the mother gives the tendencies over to the son more than the father. So if we have to choose between Elazar and his wife, which was the daughter of Yisro, so we have to choose the mother. More tendency would be carried from the mother. Now let's go to the mother. Who was the mother's parents? So we don't look at who her mother was, because more the tendencies are passed from a daughter from a father. So who is that? Yisro. So therefore, naturally, they said, we see it all fits right in perfectly to our investigation. And here it is, the jury. This individual, you think he's such a hero. This was mamish, a murderer in action. He just found a good halachic excuse. Al Rebbe says in the Kutei Torah that the vast majority of Kanoim today, they're Pasha people with terrible nature, cruel people. And they're just happy to use the Torah as an excuse to express their cruel nature. Al Rebbe writes that. So they say they're throwing a stone at cars because they're being Moicha and Chilul Shabbos. They're not throwing stones. I remember once a Kanoi from Meir Sharim who was speaking to him canningly about how his education was, and it's eye-opening, horrible stuff. The way he was educated and mamish educated to be. Very cruel person, very mean and cruel person. And he, at this point, he was already over, and he told us, 100%. This was all about the fun. This had nothing to do with Yiddishkeit. All about the fun, the action. He said personally for me, this was all about the action. This was nothing about Yiddishkeit. No, you're not going to Shabbos. This is nothing to do with Yiddishkeit. This had to do with Pashut, a burning nature of Kanos, of getting at people. So this is what the Shvatim were saying about Pinchas. So now that we've developed so for so long the attack against Pinchas, let's not start discussing the answer. What did Hashem say back? Al kach yishav HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Let's see where we are, one vav. Pinchas, Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKadosh. Kenasho Pinchas ein aves mizvah puti. Hashem says in the Torah, guys, they're feeding you hogwash. This whole theory of the prosecution, it's a bunch of baloney. It's true that his grandfather Yisro did these things, but that's not the motive and that's not the character of Pinchas. Pinchas does not come, his character does not come from that grandfather. And with Dafka B'Yisrael ben Aaron, on the contrary, his character is specifically one of soft nature, of kindness, of mercy. So if so, the prosecution will say, how can you say such a thing? All Klal Yisrael, who don't come from Yisrael, didn't have the guts and the cruelty to do what he did. And here we see one person who did it, and we see his grandfather was the cruelest of all. So what are you saying, the pasuk, that what are you saying, Hashem, that he comes from Aaron? He wouldn't have done it if he came from Aaron. He says, no, it's because he came from Aaron, whose entire Metzias is about Reidev Shalom, V'oyev Shalom, to bring peace. So he did this because of his great passion for peace, as his only ability to have peace in the Midbar, to have peace amongst the Jewish people, that people should stop dying, was through doing this cruel act. He had no choice. He became completely aroused to be Mashkin Shalom Ben Yisrael Ben HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to bring peace between the Eibishter and Hashem, which is Aaron's whole purpose. That's why he did this, because he has this character of Aaron in his nature. This is why Rashi concludes his Pirush, that his lineage is mentioned after Aaron. And this teaches us two things. Number one, it's teaching us that when the pasuk says Ben Elazar is just an introduction, but that's not the main issue. The main issue isn't about who Elazar was. The main issue is that he comes from Aaron, as we don't see Elazar was a person of Oyev Shalom, Reidev Shalom. Maybe he was, but it's not emphasized by him. But his father, Aaron, it was. When we want to counter the claim of cruelty, we want to mention specifically who he received a nature of being a kanai, being on the epitome of kindness to bring peace between the Jewish people and God, which was Aaron. Number two, although the verse states that he was a son of Aaron HaKohen, but for the purpose of the answer, the counterattack against what the Shvatim were saying against, the disparaging Pinchas, that's not what's important. The importance here is not that Aaron's a Kohen or not a Kohen. That's irrelevant here. What's relevant is the nature of Aaron to be Reidev Shalom. And that's why Rashi chopped that off. He omitted it, as that's not important in their time. Vein Chassidus dafka b'yoseh Kohen.
What is the idea of it?
Right, a Kohen does come from Chesed, that's true. But you can also say that a Kohen, it says that Kohanim is reason. Kohanim also have a little bit. It's like it's a type of chesed that sometimes gets it's too much chesed. In other words, it can be a chesed that gets too extreme. That's why I think it doesn't say. Like, I'll give you an example. It says that we discussed this last week that the Kohanim wouldn't even wait for the Tamei Kohen to leave; they would place him as meicher. So Kohanim were known. Look at the Chashmonayim. They were Kohen, right? They also have. So maybe emphasizing that wouldn't be so helpful. In any event, the Rebbe doesn't go into that part that you mentioned.
They were also shifted on the permanence.
Correct. Yeah. Okay, I'm debating whether we should do Oy Zayin or just skip. Let me just see. Oy Zayin is basically an alternative understanding of the claim and why Rashi doesn't accept it. You want to do it or you want to skip it?
Does the Rebbe mention like the lineage from Yisro would be what allowed him to be able to do that, and no one else would be able to?
I had no guts to do it.
Well, that was the claim of the Shvatim.
No, but the Torah, like only about Shuba could have that in them to be able to. They needed it that.
So we'll see. So let's maybe do this. Let's do this. Seemingly, we can ask the question. I'm going to read it quick and then explain. Okay, this is Shaigaman Hagazush Yisrael Masbiris Tainas Hashvat. Kim Shavi Maya Vedakova Vedazar Miskabo Amada Shayispat Yisrael Shabaylarab. The Tamus is Khatima Mukiyasi of Abdu the Kimachim, Yuchad Yasum Kobani Israel. Shahaim Beni Avim Yitzchak Yaakov Shneetzler. Visa how you move in Madua Gisha Teres Chusa Ben Aaron Akaim. Shadra, it's like Kayam Spirish of Mesfulam. Ain't a stam over the Shem, or Kain Hashem. Wait for us for Yisrael. Whether if you pure Zaf, a million Benalaz and Mile Tanas Shvatim, Madu Mas Barashi Daf, the Spirit Shpit Magal, Mashal the Field, any Milakain Khudbila. In other words, the Rebbe here saying like this. Why instead we're now going to have another prosecuting attorney that's going to give a different theory of what the intent of the Shvatim was against Pinchas. Rashi gave his theory. Rashi says that, right, it was because they were saying his grandfather was very cruel, fattened calves, and this is the nature as passed to the daughter, from the daughter to the son. That's more instinctive than is the nature of the grandfather from the father's side, as we already explained. Why does Rashi have to go that route? Let's go a different route. That the intent of the Shvatim was to say simply that his grandfather is an idol worshiper, was a major idol worshiper. And since his grandfather was a major idol worshiper, so therefore you must conclude that Pinchas really did this because of a murderous tendency, of a cruel tendency. As it doesn't make sense that someone whose grandfather served idolatry would care so much about Hashem that he wants to go ahead and murder Zimri for what he was doing. As why does the Torah prohibit intermarriage? So you don't serve idolatry. So his grandfather was the top idol worshiper on earth. And he's the grandson, and this comes in the inheritance. So you can't be that he really cared about it so much. So let's just say simply that the Shvatim were making fun of Pinchas. The little Pinchas was saying, your grandfather is Eivav Zava, which proves that it must be you had other motives here, because that can't really matter too much to you when this is in the family. And therefore it's understood that the Pasuk says, no, the opposite. Pinchas comes from who? From a Kohen, the highest Jew, the greatest Jew possible. And therefore he does care about these things. Why doesn't Rashi accept that explanation of the Taina of the Shvatim? Kachish Techuvas, there's two answers for this. Number one, idolatry is not something that's inherited. The fact that Pinchas, that his grandfather served idolatry, what does that have to do with Pinchas? That's a matter of philosophy. You don't inherit a philosophy to somebody else, you inherit a nature. Especially if you've already changed, you don't believe in the philosophy anymore. How is that inherited? So the fact that Yisro served idolatry is irrelevant to what the character of Pinchas would be. So that's the first reason why Rashi doesn't accept that this was their claim of disparagement. Especially the fact that Yisro gave up all the idolatry and came to recognize God. There's no room to say that he inherited an aspect of idolatry, a philosophy of idolatry, to his grandchild. Number two, Eli's Kavanas Torah Lishla. As a keshel of the Veda Zara, they ba Hakasav Yichsay. If the Torah's intent was this, then they could have just said that Pinchas is the son of Elazar, as then it would be understood that he's the son of a Kain. The highest Jew, Elazar at that time, was the Kain Gadol. It doesn't need to add Ben Aaron. The fact that the Torah adds Ben Aaron, that's what made Rashi give his theory of what they were making fun of him about, and that was with the fattening of the calves. Furthermore, if the entire idea is to negate any lineage to idolatry, then the pasuk would not have mentioned Aaron. As we all know, Aaron had something to do with the Egel Azav. So what are you bringing up Aaron? He has both sides here of that. So therefore, Rashi did not want to give the theory that they were making fun of the fact that his grandfather was an idol worshiper, as getting Yichas Rabban wouldn't help too much in that respect, and therefore he gave his explanation. They were saying he's cruel, and therefore we had the pasuk to come along and say that really he's tachlis hashalim and chesed, and that's why he did what he did. Okay, we're leaving now the more intellectual and deep aspects of the Sikha, and we're getting more to the practical halacha l'maaseh applications. That's from here till the end of the Sikha. Ois ches. Pirush Rashi koilo yedna shel Torah. Rashi's commentary includes wine of Torah, meaning it includes some divine messages and avodas Hashem for a Jew. The lesson that we need to learn from this Rashi is simply understood. When you see a person doing a good act, something positive, something that al pi halacha is good for him to do. Even if you have many proofs that he's doing it for the wrong reasons, for ulterior motives, it's forbidden nonetheless to negate the good action that he is doing. Why? Few reasons. Number one, we see this all the time. Not only, first of all, I'll tell you where we see this. First of all, we see this in our heads. Sometimes, we think this in our heads. We see someone doing it, and we tell ourselves, oh, they're doing this for this reason, they're doing it for cover, they're doing it for this. We turn their good action that something selfish is something wrong, something negative. Or like with Pinchas, he's doing because he's a cruel person. He's doing the mitzvah because he's a bad nature. But then furthermore, you have people who mamash aren't ashamed, and they say it here, and they make fun of this guy, they make fun of that guy. I've witnessed it many times, unfortunately. Go through a list to shoot everybody. There's no one left but themselves. Once one guy asked him, "What's with you?" He said, "I'm also a shlemazel." So he says, "Why, if you're such a shlemazel, if you're such a lowlife, why do you have to make everyone else a lowlife?" So he says, because they have to know the truth. People have to know the truth. So unfortunately, there's people who either never learned the Sikha or learned it, but don't practice it. Don't practice the message. It's one thing if your head, it's hard to control your heart, your thoughts, your brain. Okay, I understand. You have machshava zara saying that this guy's doing it. It's another thing to talk about it and to talk about it in public. So one reason why it's wrong to belittle and disparage someone's good act just because you have proofs of bad motives. The halacha states the Torah says, instructs us, you should do mitzvahs even for wrong motives, meaning if it's a choice about doing a mitzvah, not doing a mitzvah at all, or doing it for wrong motives, do it for wrong motives rather than not do it. So that's number one. Eventually he'll reach the right motive. And especially based on the Chassidic pshat. The Baal Shem Tov explains that this means that the pnimius in his inner heart is really doing it for the right reason. Just externally, he has all these exterior motives that he's applying. But in truth, deep down, it's the Shema. And therefore, from the within, from the pnimius of the Lishma, of the not Lishma, it'll come out Lishma. Eventually become Lishma. That this inner hidden part will become revealed. Not to get confused, this doesn't mean that someone who's doing something for good intentions, but it's against halacha, that we should sit silent and we shouldn't speak and we shouldn't say anything. That's not at all the intention of the sefer. The opposite is the intention. The person's actions is correct. It's just the motives that may have an issue. But his actions are correct. But if his actions are incorrect, I couldn't care less what his motives are. Then you have to see the right place, the right time to deal with it. If you should speak bad against it, you shouldn't speak against it. I'm not going into it. The point is that this isn't coming to say let's all be liberal, let's all everything's acceptable, everything's okay. Never open our mouths against anyone because you can't judge. What do you can't judge? We have a Shulchanaruchharav. The point of Shulchanaruchharav, what he's doing is also. I'm not judging. It says in Shulchanaruchharav, it's also. That's it. It's a crime. I don't care. I'm not going into why you're doing it and how you're doing it. That's for God. What you're doing is wrong, period. This is the opposite case. What you're doing is right. The reason why you're doing it, I think, is wrong. The Rebbe says, even if so, keep it to yourself. It's none of your business. Keep it to yourself. As what he is doing is correct, because even if it's Leil Shema, even if you're right and how you're judging him, number two, another reason why you should keep it to yourself. If you make fun of him, if you disparage him, if you start putting him down, well, yeah, this person, he's doing it for the wrong reasons. As a result of this, he may actually stop. And it's true. A lot of positive things that people want to do, they get cold feet because of other people putting them down. And sometimes it's true. They put them down. People said, oh, he's doing this because he's selfish. He has a lot of gaiva. And he says, it's true. I do have a lot of gaiva. So that's it. I got cold feet. I'm not doing this anymore. When even if it's true that he's doing it to gaiva, the Torah says he has to continue. So what the person should be emphasizing is to try to arouse him to learn the Shema, but not to arouse him not to learn anymore. Gimel. The third reason. In other words, the first reason is that in truth there is a lishma deep down there, even if you're right, he's doing Shema. The second thing is that this is what he's supposed to be doing according to Shulchanaruchharav. So what are you doing to give him cold feet and make him stop doing it? The third thing is that who are you to judge? Who are you to know? What you can judge what's going on in someone's mind or heart. As we just saw in this case example, they're coming and saying, this is why Pinchas did. And Hashem says the truth, no, you're all wrong. You all failed psychology. You made something up that's completely far from reality. He had nothing of the tendencies of his grandfather Yisro. That's the truth. And he didn't have any cruel nature. So you think you have all the evidence in the world, when in truth you completely missed the boat. They had clear proofs. They did allow the Shema. The who knows the hearts, he testifies on Pinchas. They did this only for the vengeance of God. Test. Belittling others because of false another. The Rebbe now takes this a step further and says that until now we were in this ice, we were saying the lesson is you don't have a right to belittle someone else's good actions, even if you think they're doing it for the wrong reasons, as A, there is a good reason involved, there is a lishma intent involved. B, the Torah commands him to continue doing what he's doing. And who are you to give him cold feet? And C, you don't really know. You don't know for certain if you're right. Maybe he is doing for the right reasons. Even if you have such proofs, you never know. Now the Rebbe turns it around. So now that we've gotten you to shut up and stop putting and belittling everyone else of their good actions, now let's talk about why do you feel a need to belittle them? So now the psychology does some counter psychology. The psychologist does counter psychology. Now we turn to the belittlers, to the shvatim. Shvatim, let's have a seat. After you failed psychology class, you got the diagnosis completely wrong. Let's now diagnose you why you felt the need to do this. Someone who belittles somebody else who does a good action, the taina, under the claim he's doing it for personal reasons, for personal motives, for his own covet, for his own, etc. About the Masada Kedusha, will come along and say, why do I put him down? I do it for Kedusha reasons. That's why I put people down. I do it in order to protect the truth, protect Kedusha. I am a natural, humble person. So that's how he thinks of himself. It's not possible for me to handle Gaiva. When I see another Jew learning Torah with great excitement and fulfilling mitzvahs behider, in a way that looks like he's trying to show off, I can't stand it. I cannot stand it and be quiet. I have to stand up for another. There's a story in the Kutei Diburim in Sefer HaZochenis, the end of Sefer HaZochenis. Read it. I believe his name was Shmuel Binyamin, whatever his name was. In a certain town, this is in the 1600s, he was this exact character. He couldn't stand arrogance. So one time, a very old Polish, who was a great Gadol Adar, came to his town. He was already in his 80s. For 50 years, he hadn't left the Beis Medrash. Only to go to the bathroom. He would literally 50 years stay in the Beis Medrash. Yom and Belay. He was known. What's that? He didn't need to cover his eyes in the Beis Medrash the whole time. He was learning Torah the whole 50 years. So he came to this town because of a family chasana, and he was in the mikvah, and he heard two people in one of the side rooms of the mikvah saying, this individual's in the mikvah right now, this Gadol Adar, do you know that he learned Shas 18 times? The old person was in the mikvah, the Gadol, and the person who hates Gaivanix was in the mikvah. And he hears the Gadol who was in the mikvah say back to them, you're wrong, I finished Shas 40 times. And he couldn't hold himself back. And when the Gadol came and started getting dressed, he let it out on him and caused a big ruckus in the community. How can you speak like that to one with daily Hadar? Anyway, so this is the nature of some people, that they claim they can't stand Gaiva. So from Rashi we learned the lesson. They were coming here with a motive of Kedusha. I am coming to say this not just because I have a personal animosity to this individual that he's doing it to show off, because I am fighting for Kedusha, for the truth, for humility. And how can we allow people of Gaiva, people of Yeshus to go ahead and show off their good deeds when it's all just a bunch of fake? It's a whole fake. It's a whole mirage in order to propel their standing, their ego. So I'm going to stand up for Kedusha. The lesson Rashi is that that's exactly what the Shvatim said. We're doing this to protect Moshe. We're doing it for Kedusha reasons, to protect the Rebbe. So Hashem says, guys, Pinchas was right, not you. In other words, even if your claim about Pinchas is correct, Pinchas was correct in what he did and not you. This teaches us a lesson regarding putting people down, who learn beheslavos, who learn with excitement, misnag behider, or have certain nidurim mitzvah, even if in your eyes you feel that this is done in a way of arrogance. And you tell yourself, well, I'm making fun of this and belittling this due to my anava. And protecting Moshe was the honor of Mikol Adam. In truth, the person who's learning and davening the special hiddur is the one who's correct, even if it's due to wrong motives and not the people putting him down. Furthermore, it's possible that the opposite. In other words, we're now going to a third step. The first step was you're not allowed to put him down for the three reasons we mentioned. The second step is you're not allowed to put him down if you have kedusha motives. I'm doing to protect anava. And the third step is that in truth, perhaps you're doing this, your whole protection of anava, your whole saying, I'm doing this to protect humility, is because you're a big ball guy. You're specifically doing it because of your gaiva. He cannot stand that the other person is doing these deeds and he is not. And therefore he's jealous of him. And if he acted properly, this jealousy should arouse within him a desire to learn from his friend and to copy his friend and to try to be likened to him. So since together with gaiva comes the midah of laziness, so he has no koyach. What, I have to work hard? I'll just put him down. I'm going to use my kinna to then have to work hard and get better than him. Together with my kinna and my sinna and my gaiva comes atzlus. So what's better? Better that I just belittle him and put him down. Therefore he puts down the learning of Torah and the good actions of the second person in order so he feels better. From holiness, it's not possible to come a conclusion that is opposite to the truth. The rest of the Avkan. The nigger the psaka toilam yasser term is flavor shma. Name is nagas built to lazuvas. The hepech mayra. The Torah's emes. Vavidons kavir l'chavstus. Now the Rebbe explains that what's the proof for you to know where these feelings are coming from. Why do I have such an issue of putting this guy down? He's doing good actions according to Allah. He's spreading Yiddishkeit. He's teaching Torah. He's doing mitzvah. Why do I feel this way? I'm claiming it's for Kedusha reasons because I can't stand Gaiva. I see that he's about Gaiva. I see he's doing it for Gaiva reasons. Well, if your feelings, desires to put down what he's doing, which would make him stop doing what he's doing, and would also transgress down the kavschus, then it's impossible that a Kedusha emotion would have conclusions that are contrary to Allah. In other words, that you can't put the two together. You can't say that it's coming from Kedusha, my animosity towards this person, while the conclusion of your animosity is that he should stop doing what he's doing or to judge him not favorably. So obviously this feeling that's being color-coded, being sweetened with Kedusha reasons is pure Klipa. It's pure Yetzirah. The Rebbe in the footnote 45 says that this is even more emphasized from the Torah of the Baal Shem Tov, that what you see bad in another person is a mirror of yourself.
Well, I'd like to just, I have this pet peeve of the women that wear this stuff all the time. Every time I see them, I get furious. You think that's what God wants? You think you're better than everybody?
Yeah, so this Sikh is talking to you. Yeah, this Sikh is talking to you. I thought there's a very well-known statement that even if we haven't said it, a lot of people live by it. If you're less firm than me, you're pashut and apikairis. If you're more firm than me, you're a fanatic.
Well,
you know what? My philosophy with these things is that we shouldn't be in the judging business. If someone calls me up, Rabbi, do I have to do this? I'll tell them Allah. But that's telling them Allah. I'm not getting into here back and forth. Just telling them Allah that you don't have to cover the way they cover. That's it. Goodbye. But why do we have to be in the business of putting people down?
That's probably for this reason, but they think they're frummer than me.
They don't think they're. Yes, they do. They think that what they're doing is totally.
Some of them actually, like, have the shluchos to convince other people.
Okay, we all do the same thing.
Right.
There's a statement, there's a saying that goes, live and let live. Okay. So the person believes what they believe. To say that this is something that we got to get through our heads. We shouldn't be in the judging business. We don't belong in the judging business. First of all, there shouldn't be time to be in the judging business. You should be too busy going forward and working on what you have to do that there's no time to be a judge. You want to pay me to sit in judgment? Fine. If God wants me to be a judge, I'll be a judge.
Besides, you know how long it takes to do that?
To do what?
Patience. Yeah. It must be. That is the perfect spot to get them to the zone. Everything.
If what they were doing is against halacha, then it's one thing. So then still you shouldn't be in the judging business. But again, it's against something is against halacha. Let's talk about the opposite, which is unfortunately the more prevalent case, that a girl or a woman is mattress. So how come by them we don't get upset? We accept it. No, not from. We accept peaceful. Everything's okay. Everything's accepted. Why? Where's the kina kanesi shel Hashem? So we're there. We're malamet schus. When we see someone who's acting more firm, then suddenly the protection from Hashem comes in. This is what the Sikh is saying. The Rebbe here is saying a very.
I want to tell you why. Because if a halabai, that they are wearing all these layers and they are everything's 100%, and it was like that at the house and etc. But we know. I won't say everybody, there's no such thing, but there is a thing that what goes on in their home is not 100%. Yeah. And it's an outside.
But how do we know?
I'm not saying, because I know a little.
I also know a few cases. I understand. There is a psychological, there's a tendency in psychology that when there is a tendency in psychology that when a person goes ahead to a very opposite extreme, it usually is hiding something of the opposite of that extreme. That is true. But that's exactly what this.
I'm not saying, but I'm just saying there's something there.
Okay, but the message of this sikha is don't. We shouldn't talk about it. We shouldn't talk about that. It's not if a case comes to me.
I feel bad for what's going on with the little children, and then later they're going to drop the whole thing.
Well, we don't know. I don't know if we have the statistics. I don't know if we have the statistics. Listen, let me put it like this. Again, this is you see the Rebbe's point here is a tough subject. This is a sensitive, hard for people to get. If you are a statistician that works with these families, then 100% between you and your work, this is what you should be involved in. You have the statistics in front of you. You know that women who dress this way, of the vast majority of their children are going off the derech, and you see a connection. So privately within your career of working with them, do this. Why do we need to speak about it? Where is that going to get us? What is that going to accomplish? This is the message that we shouldn't be in the judging business if it's not our business.
I think there's only reaction to people just living.
But this is just an example. It's with that and everything. And I'll give you a little reason. One of the greatest causes of animosity that there is to Chabad Lubavitch is because people are jealous. People see that Chabad Lubavitch is going out and spreading Yiddishkeit and becoming shluchim, and they're doing, and especially let's go back in history when the original Hasidic movement, they were taking upon themselves all these chumras. All the other members of jury who didn't look keenly at the Hasidic movement saw. There's a group of Yidden that now are trying to show that they're better than us. And therefore they have to go out and attack them and disparage them and make claims of apikaros. We see this again and again. But the second that a Jew sees another Jew elevating himself higher, there's a natural tendency of the Shimon, that the Shvatim are mevazim as Pinchas. And they claim it and they cherry pick it with all these Kedusha reasons. There's this and there's that and there's that. They look. We saw that the Rebbe's Miftzayim, it wasn't just that there was a Klipa in Shamayim and a Satan in Shamayim fighting against the Rebbe's Miftzayim. It was also because Pashut, people couldn't handle that. Here, I'm not doing anything, and these Yidden are going in and saying that you have to do this, and that shows me that I'm doing something wrong by not doing it. So therefore, I'm going to put it down. The Rebbe is telling everybody to work on this point. The point is very simple. If according to halacha what they're doing is correct, that's it. There should be no more discussion. Let's finish this ice. Ice yud. Hayrani sefes nilmedes of Pasha saying. The hemshech ayim Rashi b'makim sheyiches es a tzadik l'shevach yiches arash l'gnai. Chayr ma'u agnai the Zimri b'yis nasi beisav l'shamayni. Seemingly, what is the disparagement of Zimri? Rashi continues that in the place that the Torah wrote the greatness of Pinchas, it wrote the disparagement of Zimri. What's the disparagement of Zimri by saying that he comes from Shevet Shimon? As b'lekachu, Ashvatim saw Zimri pal b'techesed. Pinchas b'techesed. The Shvatim said Pinchas was standing up for cruelty while Zimri was standing up for kindness. Remember what we explained earlier. So the Torah is negating both of these points. In the place that they said Pinchas is coming from cruelty from Yisrael, in truth, the Torah says that he's coming from Aaron, from Shalom, from Chesed. And the point that you said that Zimri came from Chesed, so too the Torah said the opposite. Your conclusion of who Zimri was wrong. That in truth, the action of Zimri being intimate with the Midyanis was not due to his midas of Chesed. That's what it looked like. He was coming to protect his Shevet, but in truth it was because Nasi Beisav Lashimaini. Shal Shimon Amas Turkli Chamas Mechareseya. Claim Masei Shal Zimri Spati Epich Midas Aches Midas Achzarius. What Zimri was doing was in truth something very cruel. It wasn't something kind. Ki'im Betkufa Shabbat V'yichal Liznais. In the period of time that this Magefa happened, when the Jewish people were promiscuous, and the Magefa happened. And this caused the Magefa to happen. At this time, when there's a Magefa going on, Zimri comes along and says, I believe everyone should get the measles. Everyone should get it. Sha'aram is mutaros li Yisrael, and Aramis is mutter. Instead of doing something to stop the epidemic, everyone should get it. Let's make a party. Instead of telling them to do tshuva, he prevents them from doing tshuva. By giving them a fake heter, the kach menasi shevet b'Yisrael, as if he's a rabbi, he's a nasi shevet. Harezu achzarius kasher b'yaser. What his actions were was something of the greatest cruelty. Kleimar hahevdu bein Zimri lebein Pinchas kotavi. The difference in Zimri and Pinchas were the opposite extremes of the claim of the Shvatim. The exact opposite. Zimri Paul Lamaisa Bachzaris Akasha B'Yeser. Zimri did what he did from tremendous cruelty. The Kisazais Itzla Shel Chesed, and he covered it up with a ring, with a cloud of kindness to protect the Shevet. Ula Umazais, and on the other hand, Pinchas Asamaisa and Yerakaksu. Pinchas did an action that looked like it was cruel, but in truth was the greatest kindness.
Distracted me. Why was what he did?
A mashal of current events mashal.
Why was what he did?
Why was it cruel?
Yeah.
Because what he did is he continued the illness. He continued the epidemic.
In essence, put a hechsher on what?
When the Shevet goes ahead, if there's something being done against halacha and the chief rabbi of the town goes ahead and does it and joins it, so everyone else is going to join. Who's going to?
What is motivation?
Why did
Even if he had motivations like that?
So first of all, right. So what his motivation that we spoke about earlier, that was what the Shvatim were saying. The Eibishter is saying that don't be. Remember, these guys failed psychology. They failed. So they didn't just fail because of Pinchas. All the tribes, all the ones who made fun of Pinchas. So their psychoanalysis of not only of Pinchas is wrong, but also of Zimri was wrong. Don't think that Zimri was such a Baal Chesed trying to protect the Shevet. There was an Achzarius here. Yud Aleph, Kinas Pinchas Tagadu. Hayram Nimas Mikach Yabikol Dor Vador Legabeinu Muvenas Bepashtus. At a time of a spiritual epidemic, heaven forbid. When we see someone getting up and fighting for the Eibishter, it's forbidden to put him down. Even if it's not the greatest Talmud Chacham and he's not the greatest Tzaddik, even if he's not a Kohen, it doesn't matter. If what he's doing is right. Not only will it end the Magefa, but it will bring the true peace between Hashem and the Jewish people. And through true peace, which is the opposite of separation of hearts and sinas chinam, the exile which was caused due to sinas chinam will be nullified. Pinchas will proclaim the redemption. Pinchas is Elio, Pinchas, as through Pinchas causing peace to come between the Jewish people and Hashem. The Geula will be proclaimed by Leo Hanavi, which is Pinchas. Will bring the hearts together. So there's a lot of lessons that we already touched upon, and everyone can derive and think about for themselves. This is the purpose I chose the Sikha, is not just to fill the time of 2 hours and to go through understanding what Rashi means. The real purpose is to put into action the lessons that we learn, which is so important. And again, the main lessons that come out of this is not to judge other people, not to be mevatel other people. The main thing should be, is what he's doing correct according to law or not? If it's not correct, then should I be in the judging business of doing something about it? Do I have ability to be mechiach? Do I have ability to bring him back? Sometimes you don't, and then you still have to be quiet because you can't do anything about it. But if the action that he's doing is good, then be quiet. That's it. There's nothing to talk about. Don't even talk about by forbidden amongst a closed group of people. Don't disparage and don't put it down. And just speak about the positivity of it. Don't speak about the negativity. Just speak about what needs to be done, what's better to be done, how is it supposed to be done. And there's no need to mention those people who aren't doing it for the right reasons. Why did the Rebbe say this Sikha? This Sikha was said in 1965. So I honestly don't have any evidence of an idea of why the Rebbe said this Sikha. These Sikhas didn't just come out of nowhere. There was a burning issue, obviously, that went on in those years. So I suspect that perhaps one of the reasons is because when the movement of Chabad houses and sending shluchim first came out, there was a lot of opposition from Lakewood and other areas saying, how can you send out a bacher to do shlichus? How can you send out a younger man? He's not even a baki in Shas yet. He's not even a baki in Shas. How can you go ahead and open up a Chabad house and start putting on tefillin? He's a nobody. He's an Amaretz. So the Rebbe's message is, listen, is what he's doing correct according to Torah? Then that's it. If he's doing what he's doing correct according to Torah, even if he's doing it for Parnas, he's doing it to become a famous rabbi, the chief rabbi of the city, what do you care? He's getting done what he has to get done, even if it's for the wrong motives, it's okay. That's number one. Number two, it could be also referring to the opposite, that there's a tendency, especially by Fabregans, when we talk about Aveda, to negate the contrary. So sometimes a Fabregan goes into belittling Misnagdim, or belittling how they're doing something. And here the Rebbe is saying to keep on a positive track. There's no need to go and put down that they're Torah learners. Yes, a person has to learn Torah Lishma, so speak about learning Torah Lishma. Speak about Avodas Atfilah. But don't put down or don't make fun or belittle the good that someone else is doing, even if it's for the wrong reasons. I want to conclude with a letter of the Rebbe Rayatz. This letter the Rebbe wrote, and this letter focuses on the opposite angle. What do we do when we are the victim of these people making fun of us? So this whole Maimah was about, this whole Sikha was about that we shouldn't be the antagonizers. We shouldn't be the shvatim. Well, what do we do when we're the victim of this? As the saying goes, no good action will go unpunished. You're doing good, you're doing benefits, and people are giving you tzaras for the good and benefit you're giving to the community, to other people. So this is a letter of the Rebbe Rayatz, and we'll conclude with this. An individual who was a Rav, I'm not sure where, wrote to the Rebbe, but I'm assuming in America, wrote to the Rebbe Rayatz that he's had, well, we'll start with the famous joke, right? An individual wakes up now at 10 o'clock in the morning, the mother knocks on his door, wakes him up and says, you got a yankel, you got to get to shul already, what are you doing? He says, Mom, nobody likes me, nobody honors me, nobody cares about me. So you got to go to shul because you're 50 years old, and also you're the rabbi. Right? So he was the rabbi of a shul. And he says, I've had enough of this congregation. Whenever I say A, they say B. I say Shalom Aleichem, they say Aleichem Shalom. I say Yalla v'Yava, they say Yava v'Yalla. Everything is the opposite. They gave me tzaras about everything. I've had enough. I'm done. I'm done. I'm staying in bed. This is what he wrote to that boy. So listen to that. Regarding what you wrote to me about your extreme feelings and emotions and your depression over what's happening in your shul and the complete chaos that goes on there between the balabat and the daven there. This says this, this says this. I'm very surprised at you, says the Rebbe. Why did this matter affect you? Affect your conscience, affect your emotions. Well, I know your real nature, and I know your capabilities, because and I know your skills. And especially while we know the nature of Balabatim, that their entire essence is for fake covet. And they have no ability to even give an opinion regarding matters of Rabbanis. In matters of halacha and Torah. In the Stak Matzah and Miras Ibcha, they always say the opposite. When Pliny says good, they have to say the opposite. How can it be that people who are likened to animals will make a reshim and effect by you, a ben Torah and a bardas? Ubeprat the filas haruach. And especially you get depressed and you think of leaving the place. This is only because you lack the knowledge of how public work is done. In other words, when someone goes into public office, and this doesn't mean just getting elected mayor, anyone who deals with the public, you got to get ready to get the tomatoes thrown at you. Be ready for it, expect it. And don't be mispah. And you have to have the strength and the courage to go through with what's right according to Torah. Whoever gives his entire being and effort to spreading Torah and fear of heaven, he has to know to begin with that there will be many mechsholim that will find him in the path. That's how it is in the past and in the future. In the pasuk says the land will not be free of poor people, and poor people is also poor in Torah and poor in good midas. And especially the wealthy people in the Amiyah Aretz will certainly not stop from being mabalbel and confusing and do everything to bother the good, as they naturally do. But the person who works truthfully, the emunah, the masir with dedication, he doesn't pay attention to any of this, and it gives him absolutely no nefilas ruach. Like dogs who are barking at him, while he's sitting on the top of the honorable wagon. Not only does not pay attention to them, but on the contrary, this fuels him even more to continue, without thinking about them at all. And he shouldn't speak with them, and he shouldn't speak about them at all. My precious student, I chose you for this work of spreading Torah in Yerushalayim, and you also gave yourself to this. Okay, the rest of the letter is basically on this message that the Rebbe Rayatz is strengthening, and how, on the one hand, we should not be mispelled from such people, and if what we're doing is correct, keep going. If they have something truthful that maybe what I'm doing is not correct, then of course do cheshbon nefesh. I'm not saying to be, my way or the highway, but if in the end of the day this is what's correct according to Torah, then we can't be mispelled. And we see this with a lot of the Milchamas and Avedas Tziburis and Malasot. Rabbanim, we get a lot of slack. This person doesn't like this psak, this person doesn't like that. Everyone has an issue with something else. And malasot, we keep moving. Good evening to everybody, and we'll conclude here with all the lessons. Good night. We have people in all parts of the globe, so Some people, good morning, good evening, good afternoon.
Good night.